Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. Welcome back. We're going to be continuing on reading letter 8 in Jesus Christ, the Christ letters, the truth. And as a reminder, letter 8, Christ explains the reality of men and women, how to live within the laws of existence and come into a state of harmonious, blessed state of being, in which all things are abundantly provided, health is restored, and joy becomes a natural state of mind. Every individual can reach this interior state of blessedness, and peace will then become the norm. All right. Let's see here where I left off. We're going to be reading about 5 pages per video for letter 8. It is one of the longer ones, and that just keeps it at a more manageable time frame, I think. Remember what I am telling you now. You are residents of 2 dimensions, and none may pass beyond the dimension of mere intellect until the prerequisites to spiritual enlightenment have been fulfilled. These are a true spiritual awakening, leading to deep insight into the activities of the ego and selfhood, followed by remorse. This is the only way. For remorse in turn leads to the rejection of the magnetic emotional dimension of rejection-bonding, which in its most virulent forms humans described as sin. When a person penetrates the spiritual dimension and is imbued with life characteristics, the person begins to realize and eventually know that the human ego drive to look out for the self actually shuts the soul off from the continuous inflow of divine life into the mind, heart, body, relationships, and daily experiences. Looking out for yourself is a human, earthly experience. Total, sincere surrender of the selfhood to Father life removes the block between the spiritual dimension and the soul. A person no longer has to look out for himself. All that divine life is now flows into the individual's body, mind, heart, experiences, and relationships. Such a person lives by instinct and follows hunches, which always work out perfectly in the long term. Divine life is always there to be accessed whenever the person surrenders self-will and turns to it for every need. You must remember that I am referring to the time when you penetrate the human dimension of intellect and move beyond your reliance on intellect and material means to get what you want out of life. Many people think they have reached this place of spiritual development, but are deluding themselves. When a person abandons logic and knows beyond all doubt that guidance can be utterly relied upon to achieve inspired goals, your life changes. Benefits flow into your experience when you fully realize that divine consciousness is the unseen reality, the power at work behind the outer appearance of your life, moving intelligent energy force to manifest your needs. You do not have to deny appearances, pour thought power into a condition you are seeking to resolve. All you have to do is surrender self-will and know that as your limited intellect yields, so does the infinite reality move in to order your life in an altogether new way, to wean you away from all your supports of the past. Bring to your mind a new vision for a new endeavor, and lead you into new areas of activity. But when this happens, you have to be prepared to let go completely. You have to release your grip on the securities of the past and know that even greater securities of a different nature await you as you follow your inspiration. Since this state of spiritual/human existence and harmonious well-being depend entirely on a person's ability to make true contact with divine reality, it is imperative to return again and again to an in-depth study of divine reality itself, and the way in which the ego drive is ceaselessly at work within the human consciousness, blocking out the intuitive directions of the divine life within the mind. At the moment, you are living in a shadowy, burdened existence instead of consciously living within and entering into divine consciousness and allowing it to permeate and gladden your thinking and life experiences. You remain locked within the mental emotional framework of electromagnetic impulses until you set your willpower to consciously dissolving the fabric of your humanly conceived beliefs and come to see clearly that your reality is divine consciousness, not your family or bank book. When you achieve this insight, you will enter into light, and the light will abide in you. Because of the discomfort and the tug of war between the evolving soul and the human ego, which demands to look good rather than be good, and yet cannot bear the thought that it may ever be imperfect, there are few people receiving inspiration and passing it on to others at this time, who will speak about the need to go through a period of inner cleansing. Modern people are conditioned to instant service, instant light. Did I read that right? Yes. Instant heat, instant food, drink, clothes, and entertainment, and therefore are not attracted to a truth which involves self-sacrifice, hard work, and total dedication to the goal. Besides which, many of these teachers are making a good deal of money out of their activities, and they must present a truth that will sell. I know I haven't added very much by way of my own personal opinions reading this to you guys on purpose, but I will say that I do see an uptick in this, and I feel torn oftentimes with these teachers, healers, and gurus, because on one point of the spectrum, they have to make a living somehow, but on the other point of the spectrum, it seems, I don't know how to even put it. It seems like, yes, they do want to put more out there to grab the person, kind of like a clickbait video. You put a title out there that grabs people, and it's nothing like what the clickbait picture or the clickbait title said it was going to be, but it got you to click on the video. So I really do understand that, and I really do see a lot of it. And because I believe so wholly in this book, and I refer to much of this as my own Bible, I realize that I don't really need all of the gurus and the teachers. I need to go within. Whenever I read anything, whenever I see anything, think anything, or feel anything, I don't feel the need to look outside to other people to help me make up my own mind, my own decision about what I may think or feel. So I find myself less and less following the teachers and the gurus that are out there these days. And I actually find myself not agreeing with a lot of the things that they present to people and the way that people look at them for all of the answers. And I understand that because I used to do it too. We want answers. We want to know. We're seeking, and that makes sense to look for answers, but you can get so wrapped up in looking for your answers from others that you forget that all you need to do is go within. That is where God is. That is where it all resides. And if you're not sure about something, that's where you should go, not to other people, certainly not to other people that aren't doing the work themselves, but to no one else but yourself and Source. If your modern teachers speak of a path of attainment to the highest dimensions by means of the transference of personal mental illumination, it will still be necessary to undergo the inner intense self-examination and purification of the bonding-rejection of magnetic emotions. If you are truly on the upward path to the highest spiritual dimensions, your road will be characterized by moments of bright, clear-sighted self-inspection and self-realization, followed frequently by self-loathing. This dark and painful feeling is the magnetic emotion in reverse. Where before the ego clung to its essential vision of itself as being the greatest and even greater than others, it now begins to glimpse the agonizing fact that perhaps it is not only slightly, but very imperfect. Any person reaching this spiritual level of development will find they are now traveling the road to true humility. Take heart when you find this happening to you. You are now pushing away the debris of past erroneous beliefs about yourself and your illusory selfhood. Remember that it is your intention or motivation or conviction which gives creative power to do whatever you want to do. The moment that you desire with all your heart to reverse your normal trend in your magnetic emotional patterns, you have set this process in motion. If you clearly define the goals you wish to achieve and keep them ever before your vision in writing or in mind, very shortly you will discover that the desired changes have taken place in your consciousness. When this happens, you will feel a lightness in spirit and will have moments of pure joy. You will be proving that the truth of being does bring captive hearts into the perfect freedom of spiritual living. At the same time, you have to understand that your ego must, of necessity to enable you to survive, make you believe you are of value to yourself and other people. Any external serious challenge regarding the value of the self is highly destructive. A desperate fear and internal subsidence of confidence will lead you to the conviction that you are without value in the world, and suicide can be the natural outcome. Therefore, your progress will and must be gradual. No one should ever expect people to be wholly changed by words of advice or times of inspiration. Growth can only take place very gradually, one insight at a time. A true spiritual insight will imbue a person's mind with an altogether new point of view, which will enable them to begin to approach certain related circumstances in life differently. This insight must direct the person's actions until it has been absorbed completely into the consciousness for eternity and becomes part of the soul evolution. For instance, a man may have the idea that he will be successful in life if he enforces his will aggressively on those who come within his orbit. He believes he will be better heard if he shouts. Then he may wake up to the fact that no one likes him much and he is avoided by employees and friends. He may become more aggressive because he now feels humiliated, or if he is an evolving soul, he will question what he can do about his isolation. The moment that divine life seeps into his consciousness psyche and makes him realize that he himself avoids people who shout, he will have a flash of inspiration. He will realize that to be happy and successful, he should treat others as he likes to be treated. You may argue that this perception is not necessarily inspired, but is born of common sense, that he himself was responsible for arriving at this realization. However, this is not so. Ego thoughts are dictated solely by the bonding-rejection impulses. Any new wisdom comes from loving intelligence. This may be the last inspired flash of insight he will ever have. But if he is truly on a spiritual path and seeking the highest dimensions of attainment, he will gradually perceive that this first overcoming of the ego is not enough. He will begin to see other previously unsuspected selfish patterns of behavior. He will define a further goal just out of reach at that moment, but very shortly, with prayer and meditation, he will achieve that goal also. In this way, his consciousness frequencies of vibration will be elevated, and he will gradually move towards the celestial kingdom of consciousness, the kingdom of heaven. Alternatively, a woman may only feel secure by not disturbing the present status quo. She is afraid to speak out when treated with a lack of respect. Such a meek person, whilst more comfortable taking refuge in silence, will also suffer deep resentments because people do not respect her passive personality. Such people usually turn to religion for comfort and reassurance, and because of non-comprehension of the laws of existence, she will probably remain static in her meekness till the end of her time on earth. Indeed, because of my words recorded in the Gospels, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," the Church has taught that meekness is to be commended. She may feel that her meekness is the way to the light. However, if the meek little lady should find the truth concerning her being and should find the right way to make contact with universal consciousness, she will eventually be told inwardly and clearly that spiritually she is the equal of everyone else. She will be inspired to express herself well. She will be given the strength to speak her truth in a more confident and attractive way. People will begin to respect this new person, and she will be manifesting the inner spiritual development gained during her times spent in meditation. At the bottom, there's some separate writing down here, so I'm going to read it to you. "I came and have come now to help you find life more abundant and infinite joy." And as a side note, I'm just actually noticing that this is on the bottom of every page in letter 8. Remember, you are not on earth to please God, as your church may tell you. You are on earth to express God and to make ever closer and closer contact with universal consciousness until you become free of the magnetic emotional bondage. I must make it clear that my words have been mistranslated in the gospel. I said, "Blessed are those with peaceful hearts, for they will inherit the earth." If you contemplate the world, you will see that those countries with peaceful hearts prosper and live in harmony with their neighbors. Where there are upheavals and genocide, this turbulence is the direct manifestation of the consciousness of the inhabitants. Such a consciousness destroys a country and begets poverty and illness. Sometimes a country such as Tibet, adorning its own isolation and spiritual rituals and beliefs, may be suffocating under the weight of its own human spiritual creations. The inhabitants need to be forced out into the turbulent world that they may put their beliefs to the test. They also bring what is real in their thinking to others who are burdened with magnetic emotional responses to life. They have been the means in a small way of relieving the pain experienced in modern society. Whilst on this journey towards light, the celestial kingdoms of divine consciousness, you will undoubtedly undergo rocky and bumpy experiences until you achieve your true goal. You will experience times of wondrous joy and times when your heart is heavy and your emotions dragged this way and that because you feel there is an impenetrable barrier between yourself and divine consciousness. You may have heard of these dark times of inner distress when a person no longer knows what he is meant to be doing or what he should be doing. Then suddenly, just when this spiritual isolation is no longer bearable and the traveler has surrendered his inner self completely, light illumines the mind, and the person will see some marvelously deeper truth concerning existence, will perceive more clearly his source of being. He will be filled with joy because God has spoken. If you've ever read Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now and A New Earth, I believe this is what he experienced and what a lot of people experience, but they refer to it as the dark night of the soul. That could be what he's referencing to. Therefore, the way forward is through the means of such moments of profound revelations. They must be treasured and remembered, otherwise all the spade work of the self will be lost, and the seeker will be continually pushed back to where he began the search. Oh, I skipped a sentence, I'm sorry. Yes, divine life has penetrated his consciousness and lifted him safely along the path leading to the attainment of the highest spiritual consciousness of the celestial kingdoms, the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, the way forward is through the means of such moments of profound revelations. They must be treasured and remembered. Otherwise, all the spade work of the self will be lost, and the seeker will be continually pushed back to where he began the search. My apologies. Faith must be strong at all times. Dithering about avails nothing. When I descend into your planes or dimensions of consciousness, I have seen seriously inclined seekers of truth uplifted for a few hours and joyfully telling people of their experience. And then, a little while later, doubting what they were so certain they had received earlier. This slows down the process of spiritual development. These times of doubt should be strenuously resisted and overcome by meditation and prayer. For what is doubt but an undermining of what you have known and believed in? Doubt is a negative creative consciousness force directed against the very experience of divine life, which lifted your spirit on high. You create within yourself a little war between your experience of divine consciousness and your human blindness. You will probably destroy the memory of that divine moment and erase all vestiges of spiritual upliftment and development it brought into your consciousness. This conflict will leave you feeling jaded and dispirited, and you will probably never realize that all alone and unassisted, you have wrought this negative transformation in yourself. People on the spiritual path frequently do this to themselves and hinder their spiritual development, never stopping to question what right they have to relapse in this self-indulgent exercise. People use their minds recklessly, blighting their lives and the lives of other people with their thoughts and words arising from their ego drive. For it is only your thought life and emotional upheavals which end in quarrels and mayhem, not your faces, bodies, hands, and legs, unless the quarrels end in physical abuse. But even bodily conflict has its origin in the frustration of the ego within mind and emotions, and conveyed to the limbs to vent the uncontrollable wrath. In this way, marriages and friendships begin in mutual joy and eventually end in misery and mutual rejection, because people find it impossible to channel their ego drive into life and love-preserving modes of self-expression. Parents and children express mutual love until the teen years. And then hatred enters the scene and sours the relationship when children rebel against authority and parents react with self-righteous abuse. Again, there is no need for such conflict. Parents must surely realize that every generation fights to find its feet in the adult world and do things more innovatively than did their elders. How can young people thrive if shackled to youthful bondage? When children become young adults, this is growing time for parents, who must now prepare for the next stage of their life, the more inspired use of their latent talents, and then old age, acceptance of their past follies and mistakes, and at last, a peaceful transition into eternal light. Why quarrel? Why fight? People wholly controlled by ego let fly and hammer away for their rights. Spiritually mature people solve problems by discussing them empathetically. What does this mean in human terms? It means listening to the other person with the spoken or silent acknowledgement that the way the other person felt or feels in a certain situation is as valid and worthy of respect as are your feelings. When overtaken by a serious confrontation in which neither of you are prepared to yield an iota of ground, go away on your own and take time to realize that what you are engaged in is a battle of consciousness. The battle is not enjoined only as a result of what was actually done and said in a moment of extreme heat. What really took place was the upshot of what you both are in consciousness. This involves your backgrounds. The conflict springs from the personality itself, the type of ego drive a person possesses, the basic perceptions of right and wrong, the normal attitude each have towards other people and life generally, Therefore, when you have conflict or confrontation, tell your opponent you are taking time off to stand still and quieten your mind to be able to listen more helpfully. Then be very wise. Call on divine consciousness for an intervention of loving consciousness into the situation. I came and have come now to help you find life more abundant and infinite joy. We're going to stop right there. And we will continue on with the next 5 or so pages in our next video. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you all very much. And until I see you again, take care of yourself, take care of those around you. Bye-bye until next time.